In this chapter we are going to build a bridge, and we can start again by adding a plane. So press Shift A and add the plane. It's one of my favorite geometries in Blender. I do everything from a plane. And let's look from the top, so press 7 on a numpad, and we'll move this in the object mode. So it's the object mode here. We can press G and move it so it sits in the middle of the river and in the middle of the road like this. So the origin point is in the center here, and it doesn't need to be too precise. It's just for a better placement. And now we can tab in and press S, then Y, and scale this 1.6 on the Y axis like that. And now we can add some loops here. We want to build that bridge arc. So let's press Ctrl R and let's add 6 cuts like this. So they'll create 7 segments, and right click to release. Now let's rotate this a little bit, and now go to the face select. So press 3 and select the middle face, and we'll enable proportional editing. So press O, or you can enable it right here. We can leave the fall off to smooth. And now let's rotate this a little bit more, and we'll press G then Z and move this up, and let's adjust that fall off with the mouse wheel so it's larger, something like this. And we are looking for the final bridge shape, so something like this. Let me look from the side, maybe even more a little bit. This will work, I think. So let's rotate it back. And now we can select all by pressing A, press E, then Z, and extrude this down. And here we can confirm with the left mouse button. But first, let's disable the proportional editing. So press O, and now S, then Z, and let's press 0. So right now we scaled this to 0, so all the faces are on the same axis. Now let's press Enter and look from the side. So I will press 3. And now we can toggle the X-ray again and move this more into the ground here. So press G, then Z, and move this down like that. And this will serve as a base for our bridge. Now we can tab out. Let's rotate this a little bit, and we'll create a cube here. But I want it to create in the middle of the bridge. So while the bridge object is selected, I will hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it, and now create a cube. So let's press Shift A and add the cube here. And now I want to scale this on X, so it's wider than the bridge. So let's press S, then the X, and scale it a little bit like this. It doesn't really matter how much. I will use this to cut into the bridge. Now let's hold Z, toggle the X-ray again, so we can see how far the cube from the edge here is. And let's press S, then Y, and scale it down to something like this. Okay, this will work. And now we can tab in, select the top face, and bring it down. So press G, then Z, and move it down like this. And now we can create the bevels here. So press 2 for edge select, select these 2 edges. But before we start beveling, it'll be good to enable that wireframe overlay. So let's go to the overlays here and enable wireframe, because we don't want any overlapping geometry here. So let's press Ctrl B, and we'll do bevel with 5 cuts like this, or 4, and just be careful that your edges do not meet like this. You want that vertical edge of the bridge to go in the middle of that face that you're beveling here. So something like this. Okay, and now we can tab out, and let's disable that overlay. And we can now select the bridge object, go to the modifiers tab, and use booleans. So let's add a boolean modifier, and that's basically the modifier that serves as a helper when you need to create more complex shapes. And I will get into booleans later in the course, so we'll go into detail there. But here we'll just use the basic boolean modifier as it is available in Blender. And right now we can choose the object here. So let's click the eyedropper icon here and select the cube. So the boolean is by default set into difference, so that's what we want. And now we can apply this modifier. So let's select this arrow and click apply. And now we can select the cube, press X and delete this, and you can see we cut into that original object and created a new shape. And now just to clean this up a little bit, I will select the bridge, go into the edit mode, press A to select all, and press Shift and again to recalculate normals in case some of them were mismatched or misplaced. And now tab out again, and we'll add the bevel modifier here as well. So let's add the bevel modifier, and we'll set this to 3 segments again. And we can switch the limit method to angle, because we don't want to bevel these shallow surfaces. And let's set the amount to something like 0.04. That'll work. And again, we can do some small setup, like in the geometry, we can set the miters to arc in case there are some corners that need fixing. And we can open the shading options and enable harden normals, and go into the object data properties and enable that auto smooth, right click and shade smooth. So we have our bridge object now ready with the bevel modifier. And now we are going to create some details here. And again, we'll reuse some of that existing geometry because it's very easy to do. So just tab in right now, go to the face select right here, select this face and control click here, and we'll press Shift D, enter, and P, enter to separate. And now we created this whole new object. So let's select this one and tab in. Now we can go to the edge select by pressing 2, alt click here to select this far edge loop, and press G twice to enable vertex slide or edge slide if you want, and slide this here. So we'll create a railing there, and this will serve as a base for that. And right now we slide this edge, but you can see the origin point is still in the middle here, which is good in this case because we can now go into the modifier tab and enable mirroring. So if you add the mirror modifier, you will have the same geometry on the other side of the origin object as well. And now we can press A to select all and press E to extrude up like this. So as you can see, the original bevel modifier is still there with the original settings, so nothing else to do here. And now with still this top loop selected, we can press Shift D once again and P, enter to separate. And now tab out and select this new object again. And this way you can create all kinds of geometry by reusing the existing parts. It's a really quick way to prototype new objects. So let's tab in, and right now I will select all, and we'll create an inset here. I want to create the bars for the railing, so let's press I to inset, but instead of insetting all at once, we'll press I once again to enable individual inset. And let's scale this so it's thin like this. We'll scale this up later, don't worry about that. So let's make it thin like that, confirm. And now let's switch to the face select, press Ctrl I to select inverse. So we select everything else here and press X and delete faces. So only these are left here, and now we can press A to select all, S and X to scale them on the X axis, and we have now nice railing bars that we can extrude. So let's rotate a little bit and let's press E and extrude it up like that. And now we can press A to select all and move it a little bit down so it's a little bit inside the geometry here. So let's press G then Z and move it down like this, so it's kind of touching the railing there at the bottom. So now we can tab out and select this object here and create the top railing. So press Shift D and confirm with the enter. And now we can go into the edit mode because we want the origin point to stay at the same place. And now we can press A, G, Z and move this up like that. Let's look from the side. So I'll press 3 on the numpad and let's press G then Z again and move this up like that. And now let's rotate a little bit. I will select the top loop here. So select this face and control click here. And we'll move this down a little bit so it's not that bulky. So press G then Z and move it down like that. And one last thing to do here is a little bit of detail. So let's select this face right here. Let's look from the side there and press Ctrl right click here to extrude this in this angle. And we'll do this on the other side as well. Don't worry about the precision, and Ctrl right here, maybe more shallow like this. It won't really matter. So this is the bridge and you can see how easy it is to reuse the geometry, and not only the geometry, the modifiers as well. So we created the bridge, and then we reused the geometry to create a railing, added the mirror modifier, and the mirror modifier got transferred to these bars as well, and to this top object too. So that's a double layer of time saving here. And right now we can tab out, and this is a little bit choppy. There's not too much geometry. This is really low poly, and I don't mind for the bridge, but here on the railing, I think it will be visible in the final render. So we can smoothen it out a little bit with the subdivision modifier. Just to be safe, we can check the overlay. So let's enable wireframe overlay. You can see that this is basically all quads. There's no wild geometry here, so we can use subdivision modifier, no problem. These bevels will support it. So let's disable the wireframe overlay, and easy way how to add the subdivision modifier. You can do this in add modifier as well, but you can use Ctrl+1 or Ctrl+2. Depends on how many levels of subdivision do you want. So we can use Ctrl+1 to smoothen this out, and for the bottom part as well. So select this, press Ctrl+1 to smoothen it out as well. And this is your nice and smooth, playful bridge. And one more little thing here, if you look closer, there's a little bit of weird shading on these rails, and that's because we subdivided them, but they still have those hardened normals active on the bevel modifier. So let's just select one of them right here. Let's expand the bevel modifier, and we can disable hardened normals. You will see that that will clean it up, and we can do the same here. And now it's only time to clean it up a little bit. So let's select these objects one by one. First the railing, then the bars, by holding shift, and let's click the bridge as last. Let's press Ctrl+P and object to parent this. So now if you move the bridge, it will move at once, and it's a little bit collapsed here in the outliner, so it makes it a little bit more easy to read. And now let's call this bridge. Okay, so that's for this chapter, and let's move on.